What the Sam Hill's going on here?
The Rewatch Podcast presents the Lois and Clark Rewatch, dedicated to the series Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman on ABC. Join us each week as we investigate the origins of the Man of Steel and uncover crime in Metropolis. Send your feedback to the Rewatch Podcast at gmail.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/rewatchpodcast or follow us on Twitter at rewatchpod.
Oh, hey! Let's get back to it.
And welcome back to the Rewatch Podcast and our Lois and Clark Rewatch. I'm Corey.
And I'm Tasha Yar. Yeah, I always wondered what happened after that monster attacked me, and I'm back.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us, everybody. We're here discussing 2 more episodes of Lois and Clark, and this week's headline reads, Madam Wall. And we are discussing Madam X and Wall of Sound. So let's get straight into it. Madam X is written by Tony Blake and Paul Jackson, directed by Randall Zisk, and this originally aired on September 18th of 1994.
You okay? Mister, I don't know nothing. About what? Relax.
How'd you catch him?
Hey. He got, tired. Look, we're reporters. We just want to know if you can tell us anything about the body that was found in that alley. Lois, I think some money would be a really good idea right about now.
Where's your wallet?
Your hands are free.
Okay, what'd you see?
I saw 2 guys dumping a body. I heard one of them call the other one Harry. Except when they left, I saw that it wasn't guys. It was chicks.
Well, did you get a good look at either one of them?
Yeah, one. It was her.
An unexplained anti-Superman sentiment has been growing larger and larger in the weeks since Luthor's death, with the populace wondering if Superman is more of a super god, deciding who he wants to save and who he doesn't. Basically, Superman, you have failed this city. Meanwhile, the Daily Planet publisher has hired on a psychologist to help the staff deal with the ups and downs they've been experiencing lately, a psychiatrist that already has a column published in the Daily Planet, Dr. Ariana Carlin. While she seems to be there to help, listening to Lois' story of how she and Lex and Clark and Superman got all jumbled up and confused, it's soon revealed that Ariana was once married to Luthor and has now had a doctor perform plastic surgery on an unfortunate accident victim to make her resemble Lois, hoping to tear apart Lois' life, Superman, and all of Metropolis. In fact, Ariana's column is the source of the anti-Superman feelings, as she uses subliminal messages in her articles to stir up hatred for the Man of Steel. Indeed, the lookalike Lois has been busy appearing on camera denouncing Superman, attacking guards at Lex's estate, and even purchasing a handgun. After Lois is bailed out of jail for the crimes her double committed, she comes face to face with her doppelganger, but is taken captive by Ariana, who calls Clark, asking him to send Superman right away, as it seems that Lois is ready to kill herself. Superman, of course, doesn't fall for that ruse, but is shocked when Ariana shoots him with a kryptonite bullet. She and the lookalike Lois flee the scene while Superman uses his powers to wake Lois, who extracts the bullet from him, saving his life and allowing him to go and capture Ariana and the lookalike, thus clearing Lois's name. However, all is not well, as another doctor hired by Ariana, named Gretchen, looks over the body of Lex Luthor encased in a healing tank, working to restore him to full health.
How is he, Gretchen? Better. The brainwaves have stabilized. Tomorrow I'll begin a mild stimulation to initiate regeneration. He always said you were the best physician he ever had. I can't tell you how comforting it is to have you caring for him. Well, it's a labor of love. It's very special to me. Hello, Lex. It's Ari. We got into your penthouse. I have the kryptonite. It won't be long now. Be well, darling.
Alright, so let's delve into the investigation for this episode.
So we have some behind-the-scenes stuff that was going on with this episode. This is, of course, the first episode of the second season. This episode was written by Tony Blake and Paul Jackson, of course, like you mentioned, who wrote The Rival last season, which was, one of the episodes we had some little issues with, but still,
They were getting some good grace, too, because they worked on Sliders.
Exactly. So they were promoted to the story editors for season 2. So I don't know how that's going to go as we go through the season here. But basically, iReactions got some information for us and said that Lane Smith was annoyed at this episode, actually at this season, because things sort of change for not just his character, but for the Lois and Clark as well. They basically act like cops without oversight. So they're not just investigative reporters. They don't just report the news. Now they're sort of being sent out to investigate crimes and really solve them and then give the information to the cops. They're not like just reporters anymore.
Yeah.
They almost are like detectives. He said that's of course a big change from what they're supposed to be doing, which is just reporting the news. He was also not happy because even though he was scripted to say, great shades of Elvis, he really didn't get a chance to tell Elvis stories anymore like he did in the first season. And it's something that I noticed in these first 2 episodes here, that the supporting cast has a little bit to do, but they're not really as prominent as they were in the first season. So that's a change to them. And he also said that they were kind of like on edge. It was a bit of a scary environment in this second season because Justin Whalen was there. And Justin Whalen is a great actor. He's a fine guy, fine kid at the time. But the fact that he was there sort of proved to everyone that any one of them were replaceable. They can get rid of him at any time and just replace him with a new actor. No explanations needed. So it was a bit of a different feel on the set. So it was not as homey, as friendly as it was during the first season. Also, Bryce Zabel, who was a big part of season 1, he wrote the episode with the Kryptonite and going back to Smallville. He said he was disappointed in the change of how they used Kryptonite. His idea was that Kryptonite makes Clark human when he's exposed to it, and his powers come back slowly. Whereas in here, it's really quick. As soon as the Kryptonite is out of the way, his powers are restored instantly.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Okay, cool. Let's see. So now we got some deleted scenes that changed from the script until they aired it. And in the beginning, we have a scene with some construction workers. And after he saves the guy, Superman basically says, "You've given new meaning to the phrase, beam me down."
What?
Wah, wah, wah. Yeah, it's very cheesy. Lois says something about, her chocolate being for low blood sugar, but in the script she's supposed to reference Sigmund. She says something like, "Oh, so now Sigmund Kent, not Sigmund Freud." She says Sigmund Kent is saying, "I have a sweet tooth. That means I'm mentally unstable. What are you doing in my drawers anyway?" So a little bit more back and forth there. There was some extra dialogue with Lois and her lookalike saying, "Oh, you're so plain," and Lois is like, I won Sweetheart of Sigma Chi, when I was in college. And, lookalike Lois says, "Oh, well, you must have went to an agricultural college to win that." So, just more back and forth. Nothing major, but just some more little, attempt at some comedy there.
Ariana?
Clark, I need your help. Lois has gone over the edge.
Where are you?
Lex Luthor's penthouse? Lois is threatening to kill herself unless she can speak to Superman.
He'll be there as soon as I can contact him.
Perfect. Clark will testify at your trial that I was only concerned with your well-being. The helpful therapist to the end. Of course, you'll tearfully insist that you've been framed. That it was actually me who killed Superman. Classic guilt transference.
You're the one that needs help. Nothing can kill Superman.
You remember Kryptonite? You're the one who named it. And this gun that you bought will kill him with it. And then you will know the pain that I felt when you drove the love of my life to his death.
I didn't drive Lex to his death.
You're in a state of denial, Lois. Too bad we don't have more time to explore that. Hurry up! He'll be here in a minute.
Who are you? Let's just say I was an accident victim who was in the right place at the right time.
Lois, you look a little stressed. As your doctor, I'm going to prescribe a light sedative.
Okay, so getting into our main discussion here. And the lead, Luthor's ex.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, so no, I was theorizing last week that it might be about Lois being Luthor's ex, but no, another ex of Luthor's that we didn't know about, an ex-wife. She is immediately set up as a bad guy.
Oh, yeah.
Not just Luthor's ex, but she's got a nefarious plan to kind of ruin Lois with this lookalike. So,
Yeah.
what do you think of this plan for Ariana Carlin?
It's just so funny. Like we never really find out who the person is that's imitating Lois. She's just an unfortunate accident victim, is what they said. You know, she was just in the right place at the right time, and at the end she gets away. So, right? So, does she get captured at the end? I can't remember now.
No, I think she does get away. Maybe.
Yeah, so there's a lookalike of Lois out there.
Yeah, she just looks like Lois.
I can't remember if I don't think that comes back into play, even though I know there are some other things that happen in later seasons with a lookalike. But yeah, it's just a bit strange. Little plot open-ended there.
Yeah, and I have to say, this is like a huge 90s trope, right? The villain who gets plastic surgery to look like somebody else and then run around looking like them and somehow being able to do the voice and everything and look exactly like the person, you know? The actor playing the person that they're supposed to be is playing the role. So you're like, yeah, okay, it's far-fetched and it's a big trope.
Yes. I mean, the rival was a bit better in that because it was an actual clone, you know? Hey, you know, that's funny. This is like a thing for these two writers, you know, doing clone episodes.
It's true.
I wonder, going forward.
Yeah. And, you know, I said it about the rival too. The scenes when they're like face to face and talking, it looks pretty good. Like the green screen they do is pretty good. And I even think that maybe Lois's dialogue back and forth with herself seemed a bit more natural this time around, as, you know, I was kind of put off by the back and forth between the two Supermans in the rival.
Yeah, I guess so. I was kind of like, when I was watching it, when they first come up to each other, I felt like it could have been a little bit tighter with the editing. Like when they're sort of looking at each other, it's almost like I don't know, there's some pauses in there that I felt like they should have like tightened up or something in there to make it feel like it was a little bit more natural back and forth for me.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I just thought the conversation they had was actually a bit better. But yeah, you're right. The timing was a little bit off for sure. Mm-hmm. But you know, the plan actually comes out pretty quickly. She's already working at the Daily Planet, writing a column as the psychiatrist, and Perry also wants to bring her in as the official, like, office psychiatrist, if anybody wants to speak it, talk it out about the recent unpleasant activities with Luthor and all that. So, yeah, she's really poised herself in a position to enact her evil plan. But really, I think, like, the major flaw in her plan was the fact that she killed the plastic surgeon. And, of course, this guy playing Dr. Heller is the doctor from Terminator.
Right.
And Terminator 2. I recognized him immediately. He seems to play a doctor a lot.
Yeah, I've seen him in other things too, yeah.
But yeah, if she'd never killed him, maybe just paid him off or whatever, she may have gotten away with it.
Yeah, it was pretty easy to connect the dots once he was discovered murdered. It's like,
Honestly, like when they tracked down like the homeless guy who was, you know, he saw like two people dumping the guy's body, the surgeon's body. I didn't quite like put it all together, really. Like, because, like, we even saw that she made this lookalike Lois, right? So when they track down that guy and they're questioning him and he's looking all shifty and stuff like that, you know, he wants money. I'm like, what's wrong with this dude?
Right.
But when he goes like, oh, you know, did you see them? He goes, yeah, one of them looked like her, and then runs off. And I was like, oh, okay, right. I don't know. It was just kind of a slow burn.
Right. Yeah. I remember this one, so I knew it was coming. Once we got into it, I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. I remember where this goes.
But it's like you were saying in the investigation about how Lois and Clark are pretty much like doing police work, right? I mean, they're chasing down leads and getting information about a murder. Like, why didn't the cops find this homeless dude?
Exactly.
Why would Lois and Clark find him first?
Mm-hmm.
It's really weird.
It is.
But, you know, while all this is going on, we've got all this, like, anti-Superman rhetoric happening. You know, it was a thing that I just thought was like a natural progression, like a 50-50 split of opinion between the people, between like, hey, why didn't you save Lex Luthor? And the other half saying, well, Lex Luthor had what was coming to him. And I didn't think it would tie into Ariana's plan the way it did. They do throw out there early, like when they're going to find the homeless guy, they see this random graffiti on the wall, and Clark has to give us exposition about how the words create the word stop.
Right.
And I was like, okay, that was a weird thing. So when it comes back later in the subliminal messages thing for Ariana's plan, I was like, wow, they really set that up early, and then I completely forgot about it.
I knew that that's what was going on, because this is one of those episodes. I don't know why I remember this episode so well. I think it's because of Ariana, because she's played by Emma Samms. You know who she is?
No, I don't.
Yeah, she was kind of like a big star back in the day. And I just remember, I never watched the show she was on. I think it was like a soap opera she was on. But I remember just seeing her around a lot of like in the supermarkets. You know, I'd go with my parents and everything like that, and you'd see her on the cover of like National Enquirer or TV Guide. In fact, I know that she was on the cover of TV Guide because I had that cover of TV Guide on my wall as a kid.
Okay.
Like, she's so beautiful. And you can't, she's playing a different character than she normally did, you know, on this show. So maybe you don't quite get it. But if you look up Emma Samms back in the day, she was quite hot. So that's why I think maybe I remember this episode, because she was on it. I was like, oh, it's her. So I kind of knew. I remembered about the whole acrostic thing, you know, the newspaper article and everything like that. So I knew it was coming. So it wasn't a surprise to me this time.
Yeah, and the other thing that they don't really hold too close to the chest is the fact that Ariana was married to Lex. Like, it comes out in the opening scene where the doctor calls her Mrs. Luthor, and she kind of gets a bit PO'd about it. I'm no longer Mrs. Luthor. My name is Ariana Carlin. And you're like, all right, thanks for the exposition there. And
exactly.
in reminding the doctor of what your name is. The fact that this isn't a mystery to us, but they really let it play out. You know, they go to Lex's will reading and find out that he's left some money to his ex-wife, and they conveniently don't say the ex-wife's name. They just refer to her as, like, what was it, like A.J. Carlin? A.C. Carlin? Yeah, you just like, that would be a weird thing to put in a will. Like, you think the will would just say, hey, I give 10 grand to my ex-wife Ariana.
Oh yeah.
Like, how many ex-wives named Ariana do you have?
Exactly.
The fact that they played out that mystery was a bit forced for me, and of course Lois and Clark are going to find out that it's Ariana Carlin, and then when it does come out, you know, this is where the plan really starts to take off. You know, she's got Lex's corpse reanimated in a cryostasis tube with this doctor named Gretchen, funnily enough played by the actress who plays Tasha Yar.
Right, Denise Crosby.
She's gonna have this fake Lois go in and throw smoke bombs everywhere in the Daily Planet for reasons.
Yeah. I don't know why.
Last season they had a bomb blow the place up. Like, what was she hoping to accomplish by gassing the place? It was just to distract Superman?
I assume, yeah, to distract him. I don't know if it was it poisonous gas or was it just smoke bombs? It might have been poisonous gas too, right?
Maybe. Yeah, I guess. But yeah, and then of course Lois gets caught. Yes. They actually did run this whole thing where the double was like going on TV and bad-mouthing Superman's actions and stuff as well.
Right. And she goes to Lex's house and tries to steal the engagement ring.
Yeah, and they say like the engagement ring's worth like $500,000 or something like that. So it gives her, I guess, motive.
Exactly.
The fact that like everybody around her is just like, hey, are you sure you're all right?
That's perfectly played, because the guy she supposedly loved turned out to be really evil and died right in front of her eyes, pretty much fell to his death. So it's natural that they'd be like, hey, are you okay? Because this is a big deal. And she's just sort of playing it off like, no, everything's fine, you know, which sort of like makes you think, no, everything's not fine. You should be upset by this.
I don't know. There's just something about it that just felt a little bit off to me. A bit forced, maybe, as it progressed. But we get to the big climax scene where Lois has been knocked out. They're luring Superman in. And Ariana is going to go ahead and shoot Superman with this kryptonite bullet. And again, like you were saying in the investigation, they kind of seem to have changed up how kryptonite works from the way we saw it in season 1. Because she shoots him and he's just down, like immediately down. And she just leaves him there to die, right?
Right.
Supposedly he's just going to slowly die. Like, why not shoot him in the head?
Yes.
Like, he's weak already. Just shoot him in the head. No, instead she just leaves him there, thinking that he will just die. And, I mean, he was in that cage. Luthor kept him in that cage for, like, 2 days. And he didn't even come close to dying. He was just really, really weak and in pain. So, yeah, I don't know why she thought that in the amount of time after she shot him to when Lois would wake up, that she thought he would die.
Maybe she's thinking, since it's in his system now, like, inside of his body, maybe it'll have a bigger effect than just, like, you know, the radiation coming from the kryptonite. That could be a reason why.
I don't know. I didn't like it.
Like we said, it's kind of like it's like a big change to how kryptonite works, and I think that's just how it's going to be going forward. That kryptonite immediately takes a major effect on him. You know, so it's a change the writers decided to make for whatever reason.
Well, like you said, as soon as it's gone, he's just back to normal.
Well, yeah, and it's an easy plot device to use too. And this happened, I think, in the comics where, like, kryptonite was being used left and right. You know, because how do you write stories for a character who can basically do anything? And in the Silver Age, Superman became like so strong. Like, he could do just like anything. He had like even super ventriloquism at one point where he could like voice cast his, you know, send his voice like halfway around the world to, like, you know, mimic someone else that way. And it's like he became like able to do anything, like even the impossible. So they brought in kryptonite all the time to like power him down so that it was like a level playing field. So I think that's what maybe they're trying to do. They don't quite know how to write like a challenging villain for Superman now, especially with Lex being gone. Because, see, Lex didn't need to have the kryptonite to be a good foil for Superman, because he was just always working behind the scenes. Now that he's gone, they don't have that. So I think they're trying to find their footing, you know, trying to find a new way to deal with the Superman power problem.
Yeah, and I think I was saying something to that effect in our, like, season 1 discussion with iReactions about how, like, Lex is the Superman villain, like the end-all be-all of Superman villains. He's the one who is Superman's biggest match. You know, he's a devious character who could take on Superman, you know, not strength-wise, but mentally.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, now he's gone. Who can they bring in, you know? They really, I think they need to return to the source material and find a good match for him. Mm-hmm. Or are they going to go the way of villain of the week, which I have a feeling is the way they're going to go.
Yeah, it certainly seems like it. At least for now, we do have somewhat of what looks like it's going to be like an overarching storyline with the whole Lex in the cryostasis chamber. So that seems like that's going to be coming back, you know, throughout the season. So we do have some type of that. But yeah, it seems like they're going to be doing like, all right, so here's the villain this week, here's the bad guy this week.
And do you know if this is from any kind of Superman lore, like Lex having been defeated and being cared for in cryostasis?
Well, there is in the comics after Superman dies, which was a huge storyline. I think it happened right before he died. Lex had a kryptonite ring that he had worn for years to keep Superman away from him, so that anytime Superman would come close, of course, he would feel weakened because he had this, you know, Lex Luthor had this ring on. It turned out the ring was actually harmful to Luthor for having worn it so long. It had a low level of radiation that actually did hurt humans, and it caused Lex Luthor to start dying. And so Lex Luthor actually fakes his death, and he goes down in a test plane that he was trying out, and he comes back cloned into a new body, and he basically becomes his son, and he's like Lex Luthor Jr., and he's like he's actually Australian. He's actually Australian. He has bright red hair, long red hair, because this was the 90s, and he has an Australian accent. He was raised in Australia, and he claims to be, you know, Lex Luthor Jr. or whatever, and he takes over for Lex Luthor and all, you know, as businessman, as head of LexCorp and all that stuff, until later Lois eventually reveals, you know, the truth when she finds out. But yeah, it's kind of related somewhat. They do have a you know, kind of a similarity there.
But this was written in the 90s, was it?
Right, yeah.
So maybe simultaneously with this being aired, or...
I think it was a little bit before this came out. Yeah.
So they could possibly draw from that.
They could, yeah. They could have.
If they wanted to. I can't remember if they get back to Lex at all in this season, to tell you the truth.
I opened up the DVD box, and there is a picture of John Shea in there.
Yeah, I'm sure there is an episode, because we have him in this cryogenic tube. But I don't know if it's like a permanent thing.
Yeah, I don't know either.
He comes back permanently. But yeah, I guess we'll find out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what about Gretchen? Do you know if she's from anything, or is this just we've dispatched Ariana Carlin, so we need somebody to take care of Lex?
I think that's just what it is, because I don't remember anyone specific. I know that he had other henchmen in the comics that helped him get reincarnated, but I don't think it was her. I think there was a man called Happerstein or something like that.
Interesting. All right, well, getting into some bylines.
All right, so we got this is something that right away when the episode started, I was like, did he just say that?
I know, right? This guy knocks him off a construction site and leans over the edge and yells, "Sorry."
What? Like he just knocked over his coffee or something. No,
Yeah.
you just basically killed him.
You killed this
You're
guy.
just sorry, dude.
And it had a very Canadian sorry to it. Sorry.
Right. It was so weird.
It was.
Like, why?
I know.
Put that in there?
If that was me, I was carrying a pole and then knocked some guy off a thing, I would be like, "Oh shit."
Exactly. Not be like, "Sorry, dude. Sorry. You okay?"
Clumsy me, my bad.
Exactly. It was so weird. So weird.
But Superman, of course, saves him, flies him down, and then this douchebag comes out of the crowd and just starts having a go at Superman. I mean, they lay it on thick with this dude.
Yes.
He's just coming out like, "Superman, more like super god. Who the hell are you to come in here to our town?" And I'm like, geez, whoa.
I know. Calm down. Well, like we said, it's the subliminal messages doing their work, and it probably works more on the weak-minded. So there you go. He's very weak-minded.
Okay, we have the brand new Daily Planet, completely refurbished. Lois doesn't know how to read her email.
It was a funny scene. This was definitely a funny scene. It was like Who's on First? Abbott and Costello.
How 90s is it though? Fax modems and the back and forth. Like the guy, it's like this older guy and this woman, and Lois is like, "How do I use this thing?" And the guy's like, "It's a fax modem and there's a memo on there how to use it, and it's in your email." "Well, how do I retrieve my email?" Like they were so glib. They were so glib that they knew how to do it and Lois didn't.
It could be kind of in character because they're used to Lois being so full of herself, so they're like, "Oh, we're just going to take her down a little bit."
I liked it. Just so 90s.
The thing that I thought was weird was this: when Superman is reading while flying, and he knocks over the aerial antenna or whatever for the radio station, and I'm like, he has super speed. We've seen him do this before. He could have read that book in a second and then flew. Instead, he's flying leisurely while he's reading the book, and then he causes some public damage. It's like, come on, I know why they did it. It's the effect and everything, but still, I thought, why do it? We didn't need that.
Especially since they've set up the fact that he can read a book in no time at all. We've seen him do that.
Now, there's a little minor note here. This was on the FOLC.wiki, fans of Lois and Clark wiki, and they said that the double, the lookalike Lois, was admonished, by Ariana Carlin. She said, "Don't use your, left hand. Lois is right-handed, so make sure you do that." But then in the next scene, the real Lois uses her left hand anyway to brush back her hair or whatever. And it's true. Just because you're right-handed doesn't mean you're not going to use your left hand to do stuff once in a while. But it was, I hadn't noticed that, but they made a note of it. And also, there was a Detective Ryder was his name in this episode, which I really didn't pay much attention to, but he's in it. And apparently he was played by Jack Crucian, who was also a detective on the old Adventures of Superman starring George Reeves back in the 50s. So a double actor here from the two different series.
Nice little homage. And I think we have to comment on it. New Jimmy.
Yes, new Jimmy.
Justin Whalen. So how you liking this? It's very different.
It is different. I understand the behind the scenes stuff. I understand how people, who are on set are like, oh, any one of us could be fired at any time now. But I mean, I don't know. I like Justin Whalen. I liked him when they first changed him up, when they first brought him in. I didn't know why. I didn't understand any of the behind the scenes stuff, anything like that. But I liked him. I thought, it's fine. Not a big deal to me. He does not play a big part in this episode. Not even really the next episode so much. So it's not like, I don't know, I guess I just didn't miss the other guy. And truthfully, I'll tell you this. I explained in episode 0 when I started watching Lois and Clark and why, the girl that I had liked at the time was into it. And when I started watching it, I myself was like, okay, so that's Clark. This other guy, okay, oh, that's Jimmy. See, because I'm used to Jimmy having red hair, and being very different from Clark. But to me, when I started watching it, I was like, boy, they're very similar. They look very similar, even though they're not twins or anything like that. So when they changed to this Jimmy, I don't know, for me visually, I was like, oh, there's a big difference here. This is actually a Jimmy that's like a little kid, which for me, when I read the comics, Jimmy was kind of a little kid when I started reading. He was, like not as mature as the Jimmy we got in the first season.
Yeah, exactly. The look is different. The age is very notable. And the hair.
Right.
That long-ass hair he's got, yeah. So, yeah, changing it up. And, of course, like, the first time we see him, he comes in and goes, hey, CK, just to go, hey, look, this is Jimmy now.
Exactly. It's been done in many other shows. Like, I remember the Partridge Family. They had a boy playing the drummer who was not a big part of the show. He was there. His name was Chris. And then in the next season of the Partridge Family, it was just a different Chris as the son. It's like, oh well, they made a change, not a big deal. So, I'm wondering. Like, I was thinking about this morning. I wonder how much the supporting cast plays into this season, because I know in the first season they were a big part of it. It was really an ensemble cast, and I'm wondering if that changes for this season. Like, I don't remember exactly, and I know in these first 2 episodes here, they're there. Perry is there, Jimmy's there, of course Kat is gone, but they don't seem to play as big a part in these first 2 episodes as they do in the first season. So I'm wondering if that's going to be how it is going forward, if the supporting cast just sort of fades off to just being there, but not really being a major part.
Yeah, I hope not, because we've got 3 full seasons left, so...
Right.
I hope they have something to do.
Right.
But yeah,
exactly.
I'm sure we'll get used to Justin Whalen. I mean, he's going to be here for the remainder of the series, so I hope he does all right.
I liked him enough to actually go and see Dungeons and Dragons when it came out, because he starred in it. So I was like, I like him. So I saw the movie coming out. I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll check that out. Why not?
All right. Well, shall we get into this week's quote vote?
All right.
What's everybody standing around for? This is a newspaper, not happy hour at Buckingham Palace. What are we here, the Daily Planet, or second stringers from the Weehawken Gazette?
Am I making myself perfectly clear?
Big week?
We had a few, but pretty much the consensus was on this one. So
all
I guess,
right.
again, a bit of a runaway. So let's do it. Cue the music.
Sean Connery and a gangster walk to work.
Wow, you must be excited, see?
Oh, I don't know, gangster. Walking to work with you isn't really the thrill it used to be.
No. The Kerth Awards. They announce the nominees tomorrow, see?
Oh, is that tomorrow?
Come on, Sean. You get nominated everywhere.
Not every year. Just every year since I've been eligible.
I bet you'll win it for the Bolivian Drug Cartel series, man.
Well, the dinner's always fun. It'll be a nice way for me to break in that new black dress I got. Did you get your tux yet?
The dinner's for nominees, Sean.
And the dates. You wanna go?
Really? Sure. Yeah.
Great. Why don't you run in and get a tux? I'm going to go to the bank and I'll meet you back here in 5.
Okay. Yeah.
And scene. It's been a long time since we've heard the gangster.
It has been a long time. I was like, I'm going to bust that one out again.
I know, you're chewing that one up. We've got whas and yeahs all over the place. Awesome.
Okay, well, let's get into the second episode discussion. The episode is Wall of Sound, written by John McNamara and directed by Alan J. Levy. And this originally aired September 25th of 1994.
All right, everybody, let's gather around and listen up. Nominations for for the Kerth Investigative Journalism Prize are in, and I'm happy to announce that one of our very own has gotten the nod. So let's have a big round of applause.
This is so embarrassing. He always does this.
For Mr. Clark Kent. Well, come on, Clark. Don't be shy. Stand up. You know, I think you stand a real good chance of winning this. That retirement home scandal...
Wait, he got nominated for the retirement home piece?
He certainly did. It was first-class journalism. Emotional wallop.
Good pictures, too, if I say so myself. They didn't happen to mention.
Olson, that was your first photo assignment. Even Secretariat didn't win the purse the first time out.
Who?
Boy, I'm glad you're not in sports. Now, Lois, don't you, have anything to say, Clark?
Right. Clark, I'm very,
Surprised?
stunned, shocked, in need of oxygen.
Lois, you've been nominated every year. You won 3 times. Don't go getting petty. The planet is a team. One person's success is everybody's. You got it?
Gotten.
At a bank robbery, everyone in the bank suddenly falls down, asleep, while robbers proceed to rob the bank. While reviewing the tapes, Clark hears a sound that starts to make Lois and Jimmy sleepy, leading them to believe that someone is using sound to commit the crimes. A quick investigation reveals 2 likely suspects, one a rock star, Lenny Stoke, and the other a scientist, Derek Camden, working with sound, both with connections to the other. While deciding together which lead to chase first, Clark hears the ultrasonic sound from the bank he heard earlier and makes an excuse to rush off, leaving Lois perturbed and thinking he wants to work on his own. When Superman arrives on the scene, the boss of the sound gang takes him down easily with a sound gun that causes Superman's equilibrium to fail, allowing the robbers to escape. The leader then announces to Metropolis that there is now a sound tax that they must pay, or else more damage will be done. Lois and Clark pay a visit to the scientist, Camden, and while he is unbalanced, explains that whatever Stoke is doing involves a power source that is greater than anything Derek could ever find. When they return to the club, Clark uses X-ray vision to discover that the power source is the city's electricity grid, which Stoke plans to use to destroy City Hall. While Lois fights off Stoke's goons, Clark sneaks in and defeats some more henchmen. He changes to Superman to see Lois held captive by Stoke, surrounded by a wall of sound, in other words, a force field. Superman leaves and flies faster than ever, breaking the sound barrier and thus enabling him to break through the force field, grab his gun, and then shut down the power to the grid, saving the city.
Never thought I'd see it. Superman having to run.
Well, knowing Superman, you won't have to see it again. He'll think of something.
Yeah, he sure will. But until that time, this paper's #1 priority is finding out who this lunatic is.
I'm on it, Chief.
Atta girl. Oh, Clark,
Yes, Chief.
what'd you find out about that sound man?
He's probably got plenty. He's been out chasing leads.
Yes.
Without me.
No. CK, are you feeling okay? I have a little headache.
It's fine, Clark. You've decided it's best to work on your own. I've decided you're right. No argument.
Just a minute here. Now, is there something going on between you two I should know about?
For those of you who haven't read the papers, I'm the one who brought Superman to his knees. In celebration of that momentous event, I'm creating a new tax, the sound tax. The rate, 50% of all money in Metropolis banks. The money will be bagged and waiting outside each branch by 9 a.m. tomorrow. Oh, and one final message to Superman. Try and stop me, please.
Okay, so just a bit here in our investigation.
So Lois actually gets up in this in the actual script before hearing who was nominated. It's like you've seen this before in episodes where you think you're going to get the award and you stand up and act all happy, and you realize, oh, I didn't win the award. So they used that trope in here. The computer files that you see on Lois's screen when they show the shot of the computer, it's actually just copied dialogue from the script. It's Lois's dialogue from the script on the screen. It's like, all right, whatever. You couldn't just type in some stuff. Okay, that's fine. Saving time, I guess. After Superman gets attacked by the sound, he was supposed to crash into Clark's apartment, like the big window that he has there. He was supposed to crash right into it instead of the way that they ended up doing it. And Lois was actually supposed to wear a nose ring as part of her disguise. Clark was going to talk to a Mrs. Valdez. And you know what? I was thinking they use Valdez a lot. There was that young girl, Amy Valdez, from Smart Kids. Now they got Miss Valdez. And Clark was going to talk to her about Derek Camden. And he starts asking her, do you know about, where he is, da-da-da. And she doesn't understand, so he repeats everything he asked her in Spanish. So a way to show off, to remind you that he is worldly. He knows a lot of languages, he gets around, that type of thing. So there was a slightly different ending here. The ending was the same, but the lead up to the ending was different. Clark rips out the power wires. But then Stoke says, I've got a backup generator. Ha, ha, ha. So he's able to still use his sound power. And basically, Superman gets punched around a little bit, attacked by Stoke. But then Lois comes to the rescue, and there's a big showdown between him and Superman there. Then we have a goon that comes in with a gun, and Lois kicks her. But then since he's distracted by the goon, Stoke is able to grab the gun and get Lois held captive. Oh, and Lois shoots the generator. That's what happened during the fight. She shoots the generator. So a bit of a different lead up to how she gets captured. More actiony, I guess, in the script.
Sorry if my ankle shattering annoys you.
No, it's not me. It's him. The guy with the gun.
Are you my appointment in Samara?
What?
Are you death come to visit me?
No, we're reporters. And you're Dr. Camden, right?
You work for him. You're his assassins.
For God's sake, if we were his assassins, do you think we would have been this clumsy?
She has a point. So those sounds that put people to sleep, blow things up.
Here. All from my heart, my soul.
Doctor, be careful.
Don't touch me!
Don't worry.
Calm down. We're your friends. Stoke lied to you. He said he was your friend just to get you out of the hospital. And then he stole your inventions, right?
No, he stole my dreams. He wants to keep my dreams. He wants to end my body and keep my dreams.
But Lenny Stoke is the sound man.
Thief! Killer! Destroyer!
I'll take that as a yes. Ha, I knew it. I was right.
We were both right.
Okay, so getting into the main story for Wall of Sound. And the lead here, Metropolis and Superman held hostage by sound.
Yes.
It kind of has a feeling that they're grasping at straws, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, this whole Superman being taken down with the power of sound. It's a good idea.
I mean, it makes sense.
But the execution, I'm not so sure about.
The thing that bothers me about the episode is because it's just Lenny Stoke. Because do you know who Lenny Stoke is?
He kind of looked familiar.
It's because Lenny Stoke, he played the leader of the nerds in the Dream Masters episode of Sliders.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes, that's who he is.
With the black eye makeup.
Yeah, with the overacting. Yes. That was him.
I did not pick that up. Yeah, you're right.
He just kind of, I don't know, I know he's been in many other things, but I don't know, maybe just his delivery and everything is just, it's so, for me, it's a little bit over the top. It's just very campy. It's like evil villain. You could see him twirling his mustache and, that type of thing.
And they're running all over town, putting out all these, supersonic sounds that, make people go to sleep.
And no one notices or no one thinks, oh, we should probably take those down.
Again, we're going back to that thing of Lois and Clark sort of becoming police detectives because they get their hands on the security footage from the bank, and Lois and Jimmy start dozing off. And it has this funny moment where Clark's like, "Didn't you see that? There must be something with the sound that made you guys, I mean, all of us almost fall asleep." And I'm like, what, the cops haven't reviewed this already? And maybe
Exactly.
come to the same conclusion and thought, maybe we shouldn't give this out to the public or remove the soundtrack from it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think in that investigation stuff, it's very accurate that these guys are just, they're doing police work. So, it's showing it off. And this story just isn't as sound, pardon the pun, as some of the other stories could be.
Exactly. No, I agree.
It seems a bit flimsy.
It's a villain of the week type thing, so it's easy to do. It's a very simple thing to write.
Yeah, it's the Toasters. All over again. Why this guy thinks he can take down Superman using sound and have that be an effective long-term plan really makes no sense. And when he does manage to sort of, he brings Superman to his knees, he just goes out there and gloats about it. He's just like, dude, like, press your luck much?
Right. And he doesn't like do anything to even like try to kill Superman. He just leaves. Like, you have him on his knees. So if you really wanted to get rid of him, now's the time to try to do it.
And we're saying that about the last episode too. Right. Ariana Carlin. Like, he's down. Like, do something maybe to get rid of him permanently. Just terrible motivations. Because really, at the end of the day, what's his motivation? Just to steal stuff?
Exactly. They want 50% of the money in the banks. They're being nice about it. They're sharing 50-50, so... They're not being totally evil. It's like, not give me all the money in the banks. It's, we'll split it with you. 50-50. You keep 50, we'll keep the other 50. He's a nice villain.
Yeah, and they also throw in this point of contention between Lois and Clark, because Clark is nominated for a Kerth Award, something that, of course, Lois was expecting she would be because she has every year. Then Clark has to take off suddenly because he knows that these sound guys are attacking, and she kind of takes that to mean, well, Clark doesn't want to work with me anymore, so how about we just not work together? So for the whole episode, you got Lois being a bit pissy and Lois and Clark not working together. I'm not sure I kind of like that about Lois, I understand that she's a hard-edged reporter and she likes to get the story, but for her to be a jealous fool at the same time, I don't know, I didn't really like that.
Yeah, they're kind of, it's almost like the relationship that they built up in the first season is gone now. It's a new relationship that they have now.
Exactly. Like this, like if this was like episode 2 or something like that, when she was still acclimating to working with him. But by the end of season 1, I mean, she called him like family, and best friends. These are things that were set up in season 1, and now they're just back to, oh, you got nominated for an award and you don't like me. Yeah, it just didn't feel good for Lois's character development.
And one of the things that iReactions had sent that I didn't include in there was, Dean Cain was disappointed too by the lack of romance that had sort of built up to the end of season 1. So, and it's like here they've sort of like reset things back to the first episode where they're in competition more.
And I think it's a little detrimental at this point. I hope it doesn't stick around for too long. But of course they figure out the whole thing. There's pretty much like 2 guys that could be doing this, and one of them has disappeared, and then the other one is this musician named Lenny Stoke.
And one of them sounds exactly like the guy giving the demands out on the radio and recordings or whatever.
Yeah, so, exactly. Like how many British rock stars are in Metropolis?
Exactly. It could be either one of them.
But it's like we said, Lenny tries to blackmail the city, but the mayor is just like, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Like, give you 50% of our money? Are you kidding? Superman will figure this out. And they have this thing where, because he's set up like little mini speakers everywhere. We see like one of the goons out and about, just sort of like pressing them up against the wall. But then there's another scene where it's like police officers trying to remove them, and they're just on there.
Yeah, they can't get them off.
And I'm like, what, Superman can't just like fly around and like find those things, just rip them off the wall, crush them?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, It's like he could have done this. They could have stopped this plan very easily.
Exactly. Like the only real threat was that weird gun sound thing that he had. It's a very big plot contrivance that he had all these little mini speakers everywhere, and it took Superman like all of his effort to get his heat vision going to blow, those couple up, which I don't even think he ended up doing, right? He threw something at it.
Yeah, he threw a steering wheel.
Again, just whatever.
I mean, maybe it would have been better if he had just used like stuff that was in place already, because like banks will have like an intercom system with speakers to, alert people when the bank is closing. If he had somehow explained that they were just tapping into the, intercom systems already in place all around, like buildings will have those type of things. So that might have made it a little bit more realistic, because it'd be harder for Superman to go around and disable every intercom system easily. But grabbing the little boxes that they're putting up, simple.
They could have had like a fire warning system or something. Like towns have those, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Anything. But then they get in this whole plot about the second guy who could do this, and there's this whole thing about Echo Canyon that they try to play off as like some like big mystery because it was in Spanish or something.
Right.
And it translated to Echo Canyon. And then they go out there and they meet this guy who was like a friend or ex-partner of Stoke. His name is Camden. And he's like gone insane or something from this like sound that he made.
Yes.
And then Stoke like used his insanity to steal his work. It was all just very contrived, right?
Yes.
It just went on, and I was just like, seriously, like...
I mean, I don't know that they really even needed him.
Yeah.
Because they could have just went to, like, they knew, they sort of got the idea of who was doing it, and they went to the place, and he looks underneath the ground with his x-ray vision. They see what he's doing. I don't know. Like, if they had actually used their investigative, brains, they would have heard the voice and say, oh, obviously, it's this guy. I don't know. It's just, it was a contrivance, like you said.
Because pretty much all that leads to is that they are now positive that it's Lenny Stoke. And then they go to his club, which is, I think, just called Club Stoke or the Stoke Club or whatever. And he takes Lois captive and then, like, holds her behind his quote-unquote wall of sound.
Copyright Phil Spector.
Thinking that everything's hunky-dory. But then, of course, Superman just breaks the sound barrier and the day is saved.
It was a unique way to rescue her, though. It's like, it's not just coming in and bashing in, the bad guy. It's like, he has to think about it. If he breaks the sound barrier, then he should be able to get through that wall of, sound. He's breaking the sound barrier. So it was a clever way to sort of get through that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we were just complaining about the fact that all those tiny speakers were everywhere, and Superman should be able to just collect those up. At least he's using his established abilities to get past the bad guy's plot. And, you're right. I liked it. Break the sound barrier, get the gun, save the day. And then it ends with Superman stopping by Lois's place. And she gives him this white rose because, she still wants to get it on with Superman?
Yep, basically. That's what I think, yeah. Trying to rekindle the romance.
Because even Superman was like, what's this? She's like, it's a rose. Yeah, what's it for? I don't know. I'm like, okay, so is that where we're going? Rather than, we've got all this animosity between Lois and Clark. Let's instead really, really push that Lois is still heavily into Superman.
I guess, like if you think about it, they didn't really do that much in the first season. Yeah, she was taken with him. She really liked him, but there wasn't a lot of there wasn't a ton of interaction between the two of them that was like this. So I guess this is why, we're resetting the relationships. So let's try to push this so that obviously she is so taken with Superman and just so annoyed with Clark at this point. So maybe that's why they're doing it. Really hammering it home.
But yeah, just a terrible episode to start setting this up. Okay, so some bylines. The Kerth Awards for investigative journalism. And Clark is nominated, Lois is super jealous, and then Clark ends up winning. So, yeah, like I said, I didn't like that it sort of created this rift between Lois and Clark, but I thought it was cool that it's set up that Clark is, he's a really good reporter now, he's on that same level as Lois. And even though she kind of treats the awards as if if I win, I win, whatever. She does sort of open up that cabinet where she keeps them all at the end and keeps them all pristine and loves it. So, yeah, I did like that aspect of it.
I don't get why why she has to hide them, though. She hides them behind a row of books, and then she pulls out the row of books and they're all lit up nicely and everything like that. I'm like, why not display them? What's the big deal? Why do you have to hide them?
I did think the same thing. I'm like, it's not weird for you to just have them on your shelf,
Exactly.
People come over and they're like, these are my journalism awards. Oh, how nice for you.
Yeah. And, like, I know she says, oh, I keep them at the bottom of my closet or whatever. But still, if you went over and you just sort of, like, if she went in and turned on the light and boom, they're all lit up, that'd be fine. Why keep them behind a row of books?
Exactly.
It really does sort of, like, reinforce that she doesn't really, like, she's embarrassed by him, you know? It's like, what the heck?
And it doesn't really match with her jealousy thing, you know? You think if she was going to be that super jealous, then yeah, she would display them and, like, show them to everybody who comes by. But, yeah, there's no reason for her to be embarrassed by it or anything. She worked hard. She won an award.
Exactly.
Okay, so it turns out in this episode too that Jimmy is an official photographer now for the Daily Planet, having worked with Clark's retirement home story, for which he was nominated. So, again, they're changing up the character a bit and sort of having, I guess, some sort of progression for him, right?
I just think, I don't know, his whole subplot here with the motorcycle jacket and the pen, none of it was really necessary, you know? Like, yeah, he got captured. Yeah, he got captured, but Superman rescues him, you know? Wasn't really a big major deal. And then the whole pen thing, it's like, yeah, okay, that helped them, you know, listen in near the end there. And again, it helped them really know that Stoke is the bad guy, but they already knew that he was the bad guy. They just didn't know his exact plans. It was just like, they didn't really need the subplot. They could have maybe focused on making the episode better instead of put it in this subplot. But, you know, it's like, it's there. It's just, like, I didn't even really mention it in the synopsis because it wasn't like a big deal. It wasn't part of the main thing.
And again, convenient.
Yeah.
In an episode where they kind of need to spy on somebody, which they didn't really have to do anyway, is the same episode that Jimmy comes in and goes, hey, Lois, check out this pen I got over at Spies R Us.
Spies R Us.
You can listen to anybody. Woo.
They don't name the stores very well, you know? we had the Magic Club last time. Now we have the Stoke Club, and we have Spies R Us. I mean, I imagine there must be, like, you know, Pants R Us, you know? Come on down to the shirt store.
It's just a sign out the front. Shirt.
Exactly.
$10.
Exactly.
Hey, I need a shirt. What about Stoke's security team?
They're pretty buff, I will say that.
Some buff women, right?
Some buff ladies there. But, like, yeah, Lois does really insult them, but she takes them down relatively easy.
I know. She throws, like, a potted plant at one of them, and they just get so fumbled up in it and fall down and just pass out.
I know. It's a typical thing, you know, like, you take someone out with one punch, and they're just out for the count. And I'm thinking, you know, when she pulls the rug out on that one, if she, like, really passes out like that, she's probably going to die. She probably has a concussion. She's dead, Lois, you know? Yeah. I know you just wanted to take her out, but I don't know. I think she must have hit her head pretty hard. And so, yeah, I hope you get some medical attention there. Otherwise, you're going to be up for murder, Lois.
Plus, that head goon comes right up into Lois's face with, like, this half-smoked cigar coming out of her mouth. And then she, like, chews on it.
Yeah.
Like rolls the whole thing into her mouth, chews on it, and then spits it out. I'm like, ew. Like, why would you do that? Gross.
That doesn't get you going?
And then, the last one I had here. The two random homeless guys that explain a sonic boom.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just cut to two homeless guys for whatever reason. One of them explains what a sonic boom is, and then they make this gag about how he never should have been, like, fired from NASA or whatever.
Yes. Well, they wanted to explain. They have to explain somehow to the audience of what he's doing. I guess they could have had Clark or Lois do it, I guess, at some point, you know, after it happened, you know, explaining, oh, yeah, the sonic boom did this, da-da-da. But I guess this was more of an amusing way to do it.
I was just like, okay, fine. Thank you for that exposition.
Or maybe they should have left Jimmy, like, kidnapped in there, and he could have explained what was going on. You know, actually make him a part of the main story.
Hey, CK, I just got back from Sonic Booms R Us. Yeah,
there you go. They explained it all to me.
But yeah, all in all, I think this is one of the most lousiest episodes we've seen of Lois and Clark yet.
Yeah, that's what I said last week. I was like, oh, I remember this one.
I saw your light. Is this a bad time?
Oh, of course not. I was just, doing a little dusting.
I wanted to thank you for the other day. I couldn't have stopped Stoke without you. You were very brave.
Well, me and Clark.
Yeah, I'll be sure to thank him, too. What are those?
Oh, nothing. Just,
Journalism awards? You sure do keep them up.
No, I hardly know that they're there.
I like the lighting. Makes them look bigger. Well, I better be going.
Wait.
What's this?
It's a rose.
What's this for?
Do I have to have a reason?
I guess not. Good night, Lois.
All right, well, let's get into some back issues.
All right, so we got quite a bit this time. We're getting into that time of history where people are using the internet a little bit more. We have someone who posted on the old Google forums there. He said they didn't believe anyone could come out of plastic surgery looking that perfect, which we talked about. You know how this is how it goes. You know, this is one of those typical things you see.
Yeah, she'd be puffy. She might have some stitches or something.
Yeah, but no, they take off the bandages and she's just perfect. They said they're tired of all the pseudoscience. You know, they're like, would Metropolis really be whipped up into hate by just that one little column? You know, it's like that. Like, not everyone is going to read that column. They might read the Daily Planet, but not that column. They might not be interested in, you know, the psychologist column of the day or whatever. So they found that a little far-fetched. I guess Alan Brennert is the guy that was expected to produce. You know, obviously we know who produced now, but back then they were expecting that guy to be the one to take over because he's, I guess, a good sci-fi writer. They said he's supposed to be a good sci-fi writer or a producer. I suppose maybe he'll engage our minds. You know, so they said hopefully. They were saying, why not take the idea of an alien who loves an Earthwoman and play with that instead? We just dumb it down, and it's kind of used in this one episode where people are against Superman, you know, against the alien, you know, and we don't really hear about that ever again. They're saying that could have been like an overarching storyline as well, this hatred, this fear of an alien Superman. So kind of what we get in the movies right now with, you know, Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman, kind of that feeling. So they're quite ahead of their time, this guy who posted. We get Zoomway's debut here in the forums. So the person who is responsible for Zoomway.net and the forums over there that where people are still discussing Lois and Clark, we finally see where she debuted on these Google forums. And it's in this thing that was being created by Jeffrey Sykes, who we talked about in the first season is the guy who did the episode recaps or the synopsis for the first season. He came up with something called the Kryptonian Cybernet, and it was like an online fan magazine, I guess, fan mag.
Cool.
And she was a part of this, and he has a couple other people that are a part of it, and they would do like news that they could find out about what was coming in upcoming episodes, and then they would have synopses of the episode that came out. They would have reviews from different people in there, and one of them was Zoomway. She was one of the workers on his Kryptonian Cybernet, and it was a pretty big review that she did of Madam X. You know, she said she was hesitant because the writers were the ones who wrote The Rival, but that they did a better job here. There were some dull, talky parts, but it was basically in the same vein as Ides of Metropolis. She was disappointed by Lois saying, well, for a second, I thought there might be something between me and Clark. And she was like, for a second? Just for a second you thought there might be? This is the guy whose name you were saying before your wedding. Obviously,
yeah,
there's more to it than that.
Crying your eyes out saying Mrs. Lois Kent.
Exactly. So she was a bit disappointed by that. She said, hopefully, you know, Lois can get over Superman and see him as a real man and not just a fantasy to escape her reality with. If the producers are resetting the romance, she's okay with that as long as it doesn't just repeat over and over again. Like, let it lead somewhere, you know, let it go somewhere. If not, it's going to be a huge letdown if they just sort of like draw it out. Yeah. She thought Clark's careless use of powers in public, like, bringing the taxi cab back by sucking in was ridiculous because people would wonder what the heck just happened there. Even the taxi cab driver.
I didn't put this in reverse.
Exactly.
What the hell was that?
Now, this is something that I don't know. A lot of people seem to be very jarred by this, the whole Justin Whalen thing. For me, when it happened, I just sort of accepted it. I'm like, oh, this is new Jimmy. But for many people, it was a big deal. They didn't like the big change. He said he looks too young to be hanging around Lois and Clark. The chemistry between Michael Landis, the original Jimmy, and Lane Smith is just gone. She said, I hope that he hits his stride soon, which I think he does. But this new Jimmy and Perry haven't had much chance to interact yet in these first 2 episodes. So we don't really see anything yet between the two of them. We'll see how that goes as the episodes go on.
Yeah, we talked about it. Hopefully it'll settle in nicely.
And then she also made a comment that Superman must be an alien. She said this in the previous issue of the Kryptonian Cybernet, that Superman has to be an alien because he says he wants to be a father and settle down as a husband, and that's something that most men are not want to do. And basically her editor, Jeffrey Sykes, and another reader came to the defense saying, no, there's some guys out there that want that. You're just hanging out with the wrong, type of guy. There's a lot of guys who don't mind being a husband and a father, and she was very pleased to hear that. She said, I'm pleased that there are some real supermen out there. Although a lot of women did write in and agree with her. Yeah, that's, we see it all the time. These guys who don't want a relationship, don't want to settle down. So it was kind of neat to read her debut here on the forums. And then there was another lady involved in the Kryptonian Cybernet. Her name is Joanna, and she liked Stoke as the villain. She liked the actor. She's seen him in a bunch of other things, I guess, as well, and likes the actor. And said he was a fun guy. He made the Lois kidnapping part fun, and it wasn't like annoying or teeth gritting to her. She doesn't remember the scenes in the episode with Superman very much because she was really like, she prefers the romantic interplay. So like the Superman scenes were just like, oh yeah, that did happen, didn't it? Yeah, I guess I kind of remember that. So they didn't like stick in her mind as well because that's not what she was into. But she said, I know I'm not the target audience though, and I get that those, there's people that complain there's not enough Superman in the series, and she would like more Superman, but she doesn't want all the moonlighting type style stuff either. So she wants like a nice mix. She wants a better balance than what they're doing. The first season was more like moonlighting, and now it seems like they're trying to do more just actiony Superman stuff. She wants something in between, which I think is what we all want.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
And then I remembered right now that Jeffrey Sykes had commented in the Kryptonian Cybernet that they were looking at Jason Alexander of Seinfeld fame to play the prankster, but apparently that fell through, and he had found out that they were going with Bronson Pinchot for the prankster. That's a little bit of behind the scenes stuff that he had found out.
Well, we're going to find out about that next week, because in our next issue we will be discussing The Source and the prankster.
Right. So I remember the prankster. I remember Bronson Pinchot as a prankster.
Yeah,
thing.
I remember it too.
Yeah. He was decent. He was a decent villain. I don't remember The Source, though. I don't know what that could be about.
Yeah. I was thinking about it before, and I was like, I'm not too sure.
Maybe something about his powers. Maybe they're going to look back into the Krypton, history again with the globe and, try
the sun, maybe, how the sun plays in. But we've kind of already seen that with that superheating Metropolis thing. I don't know.
We'll find out next week, because that's it for this issue of the Rewatch Podcast. Keep up with listener interaction by liking our Facebook page at facebook.com/Rewatch Podcast or facebook.com/Lois and Clark Rewatch, where you can see pictures of me as Superman. I went to the Comic-Con this past week, so if you go on over there to facebook.com/Lois and Clark Rewatch and scroll down a bit to the previous post, you should be able to see pictures of me dressed up in my homemade Superman outfit that I put together. And if you go over on the Zoomway forums, then you'll be able to see. I explain a little bit on the Zoomway forums in the Lois and Clark thread about how I put that suit together, the different parts and everything. So check it out. Don't forget to also follow the show on Twitter at RewatchPod. The pictures are there as well. You can visit our webpage at rewatchpodcast.podomatic.com, which has links to some of our favorite sites, such as the aforementioned Zoomway.net, the FOLC.wiki.com, and the SupermanHomepage.com. And there's also links to our archive of film rewatch episodes.
And you can always write us an email or record a voice message and send it over to the Rewatch Podcast at gmail.com. And if you've enjoyed the show, please consider giving us a rate and review on iTunes. Helps more than you know. And you can help support the Rewatch Podcast by heading to patreon.com/Rewatch Podcast and make a monthly contribution as little as $1, and every dollar counts. And we are, of course, on YouTube, so just search Rewatch Podcast and subscribe today. Okay, well, thank you for joining me for these 2 episodes of Lois and Clark, Tom.
Yep.
And I would just say, until next time, don't worry, you'll always have me.
We gotta fly.
The Rewatch Podcast is not associated with Warner Brothers Television, ABC, Gangbuster Films Incorporated, or Roundelay Productions.
Don't believe everything you see on TV.
The use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, or educational purposes as provided in United States Code Title 17, aka Fair Use.
Let's get legal on this.
Music provided by Kevin McCloud at incompetech.com.
Great shades of Elvis.
Copyright 2016, The Rewatch Podcast.
Wear your beepers. We'll be in touch.
Hi, Rewatch Podcast listeners. I'm Corey.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Nathan.
First off, let me say that we have all had a blast doing the Rewatch Podcast. Every week, we put out another episode for free for you. And although we enjoy these discussions with each other, we truly do this for you guys out there in podcast land.
That's right, Corey. But we are here today to tell you about Patreon. Every week, there are costs involved in podcasting about film and television, including hosting and bandwidth charges, our own personal internet usage, and film or show rentals and purchases. So, we're asking you to become a Patreon supporter.
If you can afford as little as $1 to throw our way per month, it would really help us keep the lights on. And if you want to send $100 our way every month, we wouldn't turn that down either. But it's your choice, and we appreciate the support you bring.
As always, we strive to bring you the best quality shows we can create, and we hope that you enjoy them. So head on over to patreon.com/rewatchpodcast to become one of our patrons and show your support for the Rewatch Podcast.
And if we get enough patrons, we may even be able to produce exclusive content just for the supporters in the form of simply getting episodes before the main feed release, or even bonus film discussion episodes as a thank you for your support. The website again is patreon.com/rewatchpodcast.
Thanks, everyone.